can't go out without changing my clothes, my shoes, my body posture. I can't do what I want to do with my own body, and who in the hell set things up like this? I was wrong again to be me being me where I was. Wrong to be who I am. I am very familiar with the problems of the CIA, and the problems of white America in general, and the problems of the teachers and the preachers and the FBI and the social workers and my particular mom and dad. I am very familiar with the problems because the problems turn out to be me. I am the history of the terrorized incarceration of myself. I am the history of battery, assault, and limitless armies against whatever I want to do with my mind and my body and my soul. I am not wrong. Wrong is not my name. And I can't tell you who the hell set things up like this, but I can tell you that from now on, my resistance, my simple and daily and nightly self-determination may very well cost you your life.
Friends. Hello, Charity. Oh, you're on mute, friend.
Good morning, good morning.
We had such major difficulties, technical difficulties. If you're watching live, sorry, we're late. Things happen. If you're not watching live, just, act like I didn't say any of what I just said.
Facts.
How you doing, Charity?
I'm good.
What's going on in your black girl world?
A lot. Well, I'm on location, so I'm in Jackson, which is one of my favorite places in the world. But I wanted to give folks an update about the women's basketball tournament since it's over. UCLA beat South Carolina, but as always, there's a couple black girl things that women's basketball kind of circles around. So, first, I think my prayers were answered when I hoped that Tennessee coach Kim Caldwell did not get another black player to come play for her. All of the players from the team have gone elsewhere. She has no roster. Even the high school player who committed to the team decided that they wanted to decommit. And she is now touting a transfer coming in from Liberty.
Liberty University.
White girl shoots a lot of threes, so
Okay.
they are into their rebuilding phase. But I'm just thankful that all the young black players decided to choose another option than to be in that toxic situation. Because generations ago, they would have, felt compelled to stay and just stick it out and tough it out. So I'm glad that happened. And then there was the brush up between Gino and Dawn. Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
What were your thoughts?
Yeah. Um, I thought, if these people are right to jump in between them because Don Staley will murder him.
She said that they
Yeah.
got some audio, and she said, "I'll
I
whoop
will beat
Gino's
your
ass."
ass.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was
No,
a low
she
class
said I
move.
would beat Gino's ass. That's
Yeah,
what she said.
I'll beat Gino's ass.
Mm-hmm. And I
Yeah,
believe her.
yeah. I think it was. I, I think he just didn't know how to accept the reality that his tenure, as king of the mountaintop, um, is ending. You know, I think in that moment he made it about himself because the reality is his team just didn't play good.
Okay, so here's my question. I have a question about that. How is it? And this is probably a very simple question for a person who pays a lot of attention to basketball. How is it that they had the 50 whatever winning game streak? I mean, it hasn't South Carolina or somebody beat them before? Like this is I got confused about that.
Oh, I think the streak. So sometimes you have like conference streaks, right, or streaks of winning at home. So sometimes those are the streaks, but they won it. So they won it last year. So sometimes they count all the games they won last year going into this year. as a
Oh, they
continual
won the
streak.
championship last year. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought South Carolina won it last year.
Mm-mm, they won it.
Okay.
Yep, UConn won it.
Well, congratulations.
What about you? What's the word in your black girl world?
Uh, my bag came, and that was really exciting. I will say though, um, I thought it was gonna be. Of course, I knew the measurements, but in my mind, I just thought it was gonna be a little wider than it is. I'm not. I'm not excited about it. I'm still excited about it, but it's just not quite as big as I thought it was gonna be.
Still a nice bag.
Yeah, it is a nice bag. Let me see what else is happening. I've been doing a lot of reflecting on leadership, my own leadership journey, doing some thinking about the lighthouse and people in place and trying to um, find the best ways not only to make our work more efficient and effective, but putting people in the place where they can rise to their leadership potential. Um, One of the things that's really important to me at the lighthouse is that people have an opportunities to do what they're really good at. I think that is a part of good leadership. That does not mean, of course, that there aren't things that we have to do that we don't like to do, don't want to do, whatever. But I think if we can find, for lack of a better way to articulate it, if we can find our purpose in our work, because purpose is enigmatic. Like, but if there's a thing that we are passionate about or really good at or want to see um grow and really like get in there and wrestle with the thing, if people on staff can have such a thing or two, then we're really leaning into what it means to like sharpen our own leadership, because that's a lot easier to do. Challenges help for sure, but that's a lot easier to do when there's a thing that you're already invested in, I think. So I've been spending a lot of my time thinking about wrestling with that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's super important, specifically, for the work that you do with black girls and black women, because the landscape of work is changing, right? And because, I want to say, I think statistic I was looking at is that black women make up less than 15% of the women's workforce, but over like 50% of the job loss in the last year. So I
Mm,
think what ends up happening is we start to scramble to find ways to make ends meet or maintain our self-sufficiency, and that takes us sometimes away from doing the things that we enjoy or that we're really good at, because we start figuring out, well, what's going to pay.
mhm.
So for I think that's really dope for you to be intentional about saying, but how can we continue to find ways that people who are working are able to do the things that they love and that they're good at? Because right now people are like, I just need a job, and
Absolutely.
that really, and it becomes a thing where, because that's the climate right now, we just we just resolve the fact that there are no other options besides, right now I just got to find work.
Mhm.
So I think
Mhm.
it's really dope to be intentional about saying, but how can we still, even in this climate, even in this, um even with these, whatever is the new recession indicator, how can we still find meaningful work that we're good at, and not just stuff that's gonna keep the lights on.
Hmm.
Challenge. That's a challenge.
It is. I also think, um, I didn't mean for us to dwell on this so long, but I also think, um, it's important if we could get more people to recognize that working, doing a job that pays you, but also gives you some kind of sense of purpose or passion, feels you in some kind of way, that is, uh, that's a privilege. No, that's an exception. And so it is perfectly fine and perfectly reasonable to have a job that just pays your bills and to find your passion, things that you want to invest in elsewhere. Like that is not, there's nothing wrong with that.
I think that's a
Um,
good point too.
yeah.
I think a lot of us, because we do work that is important to us and what we're doing, we get caught up in that as part of our identities
Hmm.
and not recognizing that sometimes your job is literally just your job, and then you find things outside of your job to fulfill you, but you don't expect that to come through the job. I think that's
Even if your job offers you fulfillment and you're passionate about it, you are still not just your job.
that's a fact. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a thing that my mom will remind me about a lot. Like there are other things. There is something else. What's the something else? Like
Yeah,
doesn't, this cannot define you by itself.
that's a fact. Yeah.
And I really wasn't trying to hear that. The first few years of running this, I was not trying to hear that. Like, no, you don't understand. And, as is the case typically with elders, they absolutely do understand.
They
Yeah,
do.
I'm telling you what I know.
Right. You
So,
what they say, hear me now and listen late, hear me now, believe me later, or something like that.
oh, I never heard that. I like that.
I got to get the details, but it's pretty much like, yeah, don't wait until you realize the truth in what I'm saying. Like just listen to me now. So,
Yeah.
for sure.
Speaking of leadership and jobs and passion,
Mhm.
let's talk a little bit about LeBron James.
Yeah, let's since that's the hot topic.
It's the hot topic. I, for the first time in a long time, had the thought surrounding LeBron James and his comments about Memphis that then spurred into other people, other NBA players. I saw a compilation video of like all of these NBA players bemoaning Memphis, like how terrible it is. It was one of the few times that I have ever legitimately like thought to myself, shut up and dribble. Just shut up and dribble. Like I don't need your social commentary, your political commentary. I don't care what you think. I don't care about your opinions. There are people who do. Like I'm sure Savannah wants to hear from him. I guess. I don't know. Maybe they're equally yoked intellectually. Whatever. I don't, shut up and dribble, sir.
I think I think the couple things, cuz I think the issue maybe 2020, I would say maybe 2017 with Kaepernick, but I think there became this idea that black multi-million dollar athletes could be the voice of the working class black community, and the way so many folks jumped on that train, that like I wasn't surprised necessarily to hear LeBron James say these things, because LeBron James has been a multimillionaire since he was 17 years old. He's not. There's no reason why we should expect him to espouse the values and views and experiences of working class black people, right? He sounds the way he should sound with the life he has. I think that because he's still aspirational for young black children, you see him with his nice black family. Um, we forget that like he is not one of us. And that's
Mm.
okay, right? I think sometimes we underestimate the class dynamics that exist within the black community, but LeBron James don't got no working class black friends that he's made in like his kids, they don't live around people. I think the optics were super jarring because you see this 6'8" black man on a golf course laughing and joking with white people, using a voice that's not the voice he uses when he's singing along with rap songs. So I think it was jarring for people to really be like, oh, he's not one of us. But
Mm-hmm.
but he hasn't been one of us like all his life, right? So I think that because the thing is, the conversation about NBA players not like in Memphis, that's a long standing conversation, right? But in that moment, it was like not LeBron, right? Not him. Like, so I think that jarringness came from a lot of black people not realizing like he don't care what's going on with working class
Wait, why?
communities
What's the reason you think people are like not LeBron in particular?
because he has been seen as, again, like because he came from, right, he came from that whole just a kid from Akron um campaign he had, single mom, got it out the mud, basketball was my way out the hood, you
Ain't that
know
everybody's story in the NBA? I mean, I know that's a gross generalization, but I mean,
but the thing is, he's the one who's now a billionaire. He's the one who's now a successful businessman. He don't got a white wife. His kid. His family takes a nice photo. So somehow, despite all that, people thought, oh, LeBron James is just like the kids I grew up with, or he's just like the people at my church, or he's like my
mm,
coworkers, and he's not at all.
yeah, he's not at all. Also, I just want to spend some time talking about how like Memphis ain't bad. Like
What's the laughter?
Memphis is not that bad. Like I think, okay, yes, him saying whatever he said, LeBron saying whatever he said, introduced the conversation, and then like I said, I saw the compilation video of all these other NBA players saying the same things about Memphis. Like, what's the city like where you came from?
Yeah,
Like,
but again, I think that's the difference, right? We can look at Memphis as some place where, one, because it's black people and it's working class, we can enjoy ourselves there. But if you a billionaire, or if you're an athlete whose enjoyment is making sure you can do the things you want to do in the city and not be around no working class people, not necessarily not be around black people, but the common folk. Cities like, because he also named Milwaukee, but cities like those, they're not cities that cater to wealthy folks in a way where, and a friend of mine I was having this conversation with a friend of mine. These aren't cities that cater to wealthy folks in a way where they can be in the city and not be around people in the city, right? So no, on a random Tuesday or Thursday night, there's nothing for you to do in Memphis because Memphis is not catering to you coming on a random Tuesday or Thursday night. Memphis
mm,
doesn't center around that. A lot of
mm,
other cities, because of the way their nightlife is or the way their, elite communities are, there's stuff for those players to do where they don't have to be in the streets. Memphis don't have that, right? But people come, again, this is millionaire talk because people travel for work all the time. You stay in the
Mhm.
Hollywood, the Holiday Inn Express, and get your cinnamon roll. You go do your work, but you don't look for a whole bunch of
They got
things
those
to
good
happen in the
cookies at the
city.
DoubleTree.
You know what I'm saying? But it's a work trip, right?
Yeah.
You going there for a work trip, complaining about the city you working in, like
Mhm.
that's a millionaire conversation. You see what I'm saying? Like that's a conversation so detached. Um, I think some of the optics about the Memphis conversation was one, you're kikiing with white folks on a golf course. That optic just looks anti-black, whatever you're talking about. Then it wasn't just I don't like Memphis. It was like I don't like Memphis, so just move the team to Nashville. Like the dismissive, like it would be
Mhm.
better if you just moved it to Nashville. So now it's like you just choosing a white city over a black city because they're not that much difference, right? Besides some of the tourism things. And then the third thing is like when he's like, well, you got NASCAR, you got Vanderbilt, so you're naming these white things in Nashville. You know what I mean? So it's just
Yeah.
like he just not saying anything positive about blackness in this conversation. But he talking to white people on a golf course. Like he know like he knows who he's talking to. But I think that again, because LeBron James had a TV show in a barbershop. You remember that? Right?
South side bar, something like that. Yeah,
It
I know
was
what you
like
talking
but I'm saying because he
about. He
presents
was
the
sitting around
optics,
talking.
yeah, he presents those optics like he's still entrenched in the working class black community and he still has those values. And it's like, bro, you a million billionaire. You definitely you can't maintain that level of wealth and have those values. But I think for a lot of people, again, it was like, oh man, LeBron ain't he really is not like us.
I want to talk a little bit more about the socio political landscape indicators, whatever, in terms of Memphis versus Nashville. But I also want to ask a question that leads to a thought. So, does the WNBA only have teams where there's an NBA team?
Not anymore. Well, currently yes, but they're not linked like they used to be. So the WNBA used to be like satellite franchises of um NBA teams, but now they're independent. So some, like the Aces, there's no team there. There are some places where there are WNBA franchises where there aren't NBA franchises.
I'm asking that because I'm curious, if ever, I haven't, but you know a lot more about the basketball world. Uh, if WNBA players say things like this, because from I'm gonna call it from the outside, not like you play in the WNBA, but again, you know a lot more about the basketball world. From the outside looking in, it seems like the WNBA as a franchise and individual players are a lot more um, aligned with the people. We just gonna say it like that.
I mean, that it doesn't
They
seem
also don't
like
make that much money.
I was about to say it doesn't seem like, right? I was on the show with two good people, uh Celie McGinnis and then Josephus, and we were talking about youth basketball, but the reality is you got these athletes who are extracted from the community at a very young age,
Hmm.
right? The way the AAU system works, you not it doesn't even work like that anymore, but you would extract these young folks from these communities and essentially make them create allow them to become stars, but that detachment from the community is part of it, right? So you're not used to being around people outside the basketball world in community, right? The fundamental difference is the pathway that women. First of all, the WNBA is um it's over half black women, but also the WNBA requires folks to get a degree before they're eligible for to be drafted.
Really? I
So
didn't
you're
know.
having so you're having people who um and also when you talk about black women, just the investment and understanding, you're fighting for pay, you're fighting for respect, right? You have there was just a video where a guy was on the internet saying he could beat a WNBA player, and it was like a freshman who gets no playing time beat him like 11-2, right? So there's just a there's not that celebrity status that WNBA players have,
Mhm.
right? So they're connected more to the community because they're literally connected to the community, right? There's also, women's basketball is a kind of a sorority because folks grow up in programs and they want to make sure that the opportunities that they had, a next generation of young girls has those. So basketball camps and things like that are just kind of part of the culture because they never got extracted from the community, right? Guys basketball players, by the time you're 12 or 13, if you get on a traveling team, you're fundamentally pulled out. You're the only kid from where you are, that's on this traveling team. So your sense of community changes, your aspiration changes. And if you like a LeBron James and you're from Akron or you're from, Milwaukee or, any of these places, you get to the point where it's like, I didn't do all this work to be a nigga in Akron, right? I didn't work this hard and do all these things and sacrifice for basketball for me not to have this status where I can do whatever I want, where I don't have to be around the people I grew up with, right? That's part of the lure. The part of the lure is like, I'm gonna make enough money where I don't never have to live like niggas live, right? So I think that's fundamentally a difference. What's changing with women's basketball is they have been trying so hard to try to market it. Um, white women in basketball just aren't marketable like that,
Yeah.
right? So there's also they can't have the same options. They've tried with Caitlin Clark, but like she's just not going to be able to hold the face of the league thing, right?
Yeah, and I think uh, part of that, and this is like I'm not trying to be funny. Like she doesn't have she don't have a look either. Like you trying to do a lot with a person who doesn't even have the look.
She got to look for what they want.
She does not have a marketable face.
They're not marketing face; they're marketing whiteness.
But I think even with whiteness, there has to be a look. There has to be a face. That by it, because if she had the look, don't ask me to describe the look, but I think we all know a look, right? When we see the look. The thing about to me, the thing about marketing whiteness is that it also has to be appealing to non-white folks. Black folks have to be able to latch on to the person also, because you still need the cultural cachet that a black audience is going to bring for the white folks to be like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Those
think
those
in
have to be together.
I think in women's basketball, they I they fundamentally disagree with that. They fundamentally believe that white people are enough to uphold women's basketball because again, it's not about sport; it's about race. So if they can sell the idea that Caitlin Clark is um, the great white hope, the savior, and I speak candidly, it helps that she looks more homely than modelly, right? Because
I don't think so.
I'm talking specifically in basketball because again, this is a different archetype of white womanhood than the femininity of the model. It's not volleyball, right? Because ultimately what you still get to do is you get to vilify black women to still make Caitlin Clark the standard of femininity. As unattractive as she may be, you say, yeah, but look at these black wildebeests she's playing against. So comparatively, it still works, right? Because also when you're talking about this different archetype, it's a lot more white women and white girls that can associate with that, because there's backlash in the white community now about body standards and body issues and everything got to be blonde hair and blue eye. So for her not being that, it also allows them not to have to uh fight with the feminists, right? With the white feminists about the issue. So now you got the white conservatives and the white feminists, you got the sports folks and the anti-black folks, all again because they're selling whiteness. I think that the issue is that I don't think they believe that they have to get black folks to buy in, because the Chicago Sky just got rid of Angel Reese. And there's a lot of conversations about, because Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark had this major
Yeah.
rivalry. Angel Reese plays for Chicago, Caitlin Clark plays for Indiana, so that becomes another rivalry. But instead, the owners were just like, we don't want to pay this young black girl this money, right? And two, we would rather just have this whole region showcase Caitlin Clark and not even have the competition. I think it's a bad move, but I think that they really are looking at women's basketball. I mean, look at UCLA, right? UCLA only had one black player on their team and they won a championship, right? Those optics are like, oh, whiteness reigns, and they beat South Carolina. So you got a white team beating a
There's a
black
bunch of
team.
racial girls.
Not a bunch.
I mean, you know. I don't know. I mean, I don't have anything to counter what you're saying. I mean, what you're saying makes sense to me. All I have is an opinion. Like
Yeah.
it's not grounded in anything other
I think you
than
make a good point though.
opinion.
I
And
think you
I'm
make a
willing to
good
say
point.
that. Hmm.
Yeah, in terms of like, one, um the difference in grounding in WNBA players versus NBA players, 100%. I do think also specifically with black players in cities, because the WNBA just expanded to Philly, Detroit, and Cleveland, right?
Hmm.
So they did so to your point, right? I think you are making a good point. I just don't think that the people in the WNBA realize that marketing to whiteness is not, that's not the move anymore, right? I think they're still trying to hold on to that. I think in the real world, expanding the black cities is showing that there is not only support for those athletes there, but the athletes don't mind going to Philly. They don't mind going to Cleveland. They don't mind going to Detroit. So, kind of this conversation about Memphis not being, because Memphis is a basketball city, right?
Hmm.
So to say move the Grizzlies from Memphis to Nashville, like you say, that gets into, now we're getting into socio-economic and political issues about investment in cities,
Hmm.
right?
Or
Because
lack
the
thereof.
100%, right? What do you know about Nashville? I've never been to Nashville.
Oh, you haven't. The one of the best things about Nashville. There are two things I like to do in Nashville. One is go to Monell's. I'm sure there are other wonderful restaurants. That's just one I know. And so whenever I go, I'm gonna go there. And then there is more than one UAL location there. And I like to shop at UAL. So those
So
are the
so
things
so it's
that I
not
personally know.
better than Memphis, so to speak, comparatively. Like if you were relocating for a job and it was like you can go to Memphis or Nashville, there wouldn't be any like major differences for you.
I mean, for me, no, not necessarily, because pretty much all I'm gonna do wherever I am is go out to eat and go shop. I'll go to museums, but that's pretty much it. And I'll do that if I'm in Memphis, in Nashville, in LA, in some town that we've never heard of before, right? I do think, however, there are a lot more options in Nashville, and a lot of that is because of the deep investment in Nashville. So, one of the things that I thought right away with this conversation was, well, it makes sense that Nashville is flourishing while Memphis isn't, because the state conspired to um, divest from Memphis and invest in Nashville. That's one of the first things I thought. I didn't I didn't have evidence of that, but there are just a lot of similarities for me between Memphis, Tennessee, and Jackson, Mississippi. And I know that is a thing that has happened in Jackson. So what I did was did some research to find out if what I thought was true was true. And what I found is what I thought is true. But and and it is complicated, just like most socio-political conversations are complicated. Now, does it all boil down to essentially race and legislative politics? Absolutely. Um, but so one thing that I found really interesting though in my research, which makes sense. Again, can it still point back to race and politics? Sure. But one of the things that I found was that in 63, Nashville and Davidson County united to have a single governmental structure. Memphis to this day has the city and the county, which
See, I've never lived in any place that has that. Like the
yeah,
city has a mayor and the county has a mayor.
and the county has a mayor. So even if, as best we can, removing race from the conversation, there's already going to be a difficult time moving anything forward when this thing is unified and this thing is fragmented. Okay, so there's that. Then we go to some point in the 80s. The mayor of Nashville, whose name, whatever his name is, look it up. I don't remember. He decides we are not going to be a southern city. We are going to be a city that competes with other cities in the nation. And um, people meaning the legislature, people meaning businesses, decided that's a great idea, and they all coalesced around this idea. Okay, so then we fast forward to. Am I telling you things you already know? Sorry.
It don't matter. You talking to our audience. You feel me? You putting them on game.
I'm talking to you and they listening. Okay, but then we fast forward to what was the recession in like 2007?
Oh wait, yeah. Oh wait,
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so we fast forward to that. So by this time, Nashville is building, Vanderbilt is there or whatever. But the boom really happened after the recession. So then what happens is you have more people coming in because Tennessee doesn't have state income tax or whatever. But then you have people then who see Memphis, where FedEx is headquartered, and there have been other businesses. What was like 2018 when Amazon was like, yeah, we're going to come and build a thing to kill your city in Memphis. So kill the environment rather. So there have been things happening in Memphis, but because now we have to reintroduce race, because Memphis is so black compared to Nashville, that businesses, the legislative body then began to see Nashville as a place for potential investment and growth, and Memphis strictly as a place to mitigate risk and maybe stabilize. So it's just a bunch of poor black people. Of course, they're not gonna say this like this, but it's a bunch of poor black people in Memphis. So we just got to make sure that this don't get any worse than it does. If I'm a kind and gentle and compassionate Republican, there's no other way to say it. I just want to make sure that this doesn't get any worse so we don't look bad. But in the meantime, let's invest in this in Nashville, because this is going to make us look good and it's going to bring more people. So then, of course, like with anything, the more energy you focus on this over here, even if your intention for Memphis is to just stabilize it, it's going to fall apart. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the intentional investment over long generations, right? Even in residential, right? And acknowledging that for generations black homeowners weren't able to, they were literally just denied for loans to improve their property, like loans um that they were eligible for, right?
Yeah.
They were just denied them. So in terms of one, you got the residential market, right? So you have people who can't upgrade their homes and maintain their homes, and the ones who can afford to move out, right? So now you have black communities who get not even gentrified; they just get abandoned. I think in the last couple of years, Memphis has one of the highest foreclosure. So if you got a black city in high foreclosure, that's black home ownership that's going down, right? One of the things that you talked about, and I'm getting to a point here, so I'm not trying to like shit on Memphis, but I want people to understand the conditions. The second thing you have is you don't have a lot of industry there besides FedEx, right? St. Jude, AutoZone, right? It's not a city where graduates from school go there to start their careers, to start families, to do things productive. Um, there's not really tourism, right? But I say that because that's where investment comes in. That's
Mm-hmm.
where if you had black, and again, I think the expectation that the elite class or the money class of black people care about working class black people is something that we need to completely abandon, right? Um, because the advisors and the handlers they have are not going to allow them. I think people forget the strings attached when you have all this money. Yes, you can invest in these things, but we're going to, like when you talk about mitigating risk, we're going to advise you away from it. Because
Mm-hmm.
the easy thing is, well, how about y'all invest in Memphis to make it the city that y'all want it to be attractive for young black professionals, to make it attractive for, families and industry and sports
Well,
teams
that's
and
why you have
business.
Germantown and Collierville.
Jesus. Right.
You
So
don't have
people
to
can
go
just
over
be
here. You
so
can go
people
right
can
over
just be
there.
around. But to my
Yeah.
point, right? Because the unfortunate thing is if there's the idea that it's risky, but if you're an investor, there's opportunity there, right? And when I mentioned the foreclosure, so I'm pointing to the fact that there's growth opportunity in housing development, in infrastructure, in ways that people are going to have issues with in terms of how they destroy cities. So we have to also look on the flip side because under capitalism there isn't a way to really do the development thing without some community, primarily black and brown communities, poor communities, um, getting removed, right? Getting destabilized. So the question then, because here's the thing, don't nobody care about Memphis. All of a sudden Memphis became popular in conversation. So a whole bunch of people started talking like they cared about what happens to black people in Memphis. They don't. Like I live here, people be like, you should move, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I agree that the infrastructure is terrible. But again, that's because the people who are running the city of Memphis have decided that black people don't deserve better. Right? That, oh no, this fine. It's fine for these niggas to live like this. They don't want anything better for themselves. So we don't want to invest too, like you said, we just want it to not get way worse than it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But all of a sudden everyone acted like they cared about Memphis. Um and I think you said it the other day. ain't nobody cared about Memphis this much since Dr. King was killed here, right? And and and
What?
that's
I
a
mean, I'm not
shallow.
laughing at Dr. King. I just, why you telling people I said that?
I said it and she laughed. You know what I'm saying? But it speaks to the point of the legacy of the city, right? When we talk about civil rights legacy, when we think of Dr. King and good things, we think of Atlanta. When you think of bad things, you like, oh, that was in
They
Memphis when he
killed
got
Dr.
killed. Yeah,
King.
they killed him. So there's all these things, um, which tie back to why the optics is so bad and why again I think we need to just completely abandon expectations that black professional athletes will have any level of black consciousness, because one thing you could do is just not say anything. One thing you could do is not is intentionally not shit on a black city and white company, or allow yourselves to be baited into conversations about, because I remember when Desmond Bain got traded and he was like, oh, I was so glad to get out of the dungeon, like the facilities had no windows. But you didn't have to say that. You could have just said, I'm so happy to be in Orlando, I'm excited for a new. So but it's the
You
lack of
say that to your
consciousness.
mama. You say that to your friends. If
It's
that's
just
what
the
you
lack
think.
it's the lack of consciousness that speaks to a disconnect from the community, right? And that's what it is. Like, they're not even concerned or considering the implications that it'll have on people that unfortunately look up to them, right?
Hmm.
So if you're a black kid in Memphis and you hear LeBron James pretty much saying fuck your city, that could hurt, that could actually hurt you. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
but they don't care, right? But I think us expecting them to care is that's where we go wrong. I think also us acting like the conversation about cities like Memphis or Jackson or Detroit, Baltimore are new conversations, right? Do we want to get involved with policy making? Do we want to get involved in like doing what the Lighthouse does and saying, "Hey, we're going to create programming and things that folks in the city of Jackson who need things can have, regardless of what the local government, regardless of what the national government's viewpoint is on the value of the people here. We value people here, so we're going to provide opportunities." Or is niggas just wanting to have something to talk about on the internet, right? Because I've heard the conversations, but it hasn't increased people actually caring about what happens to black people in Memphis. Oh man, something about the schools. Oh, so right, the XAI Center been here, right? The task force been here.
Yeah.
So there's all these things that if we actually want to have conversations about what's happening with black people in Memphis, we can have those. We can put together things to try to improve those conditions, but just using it as a talking point, in the group chat. And right now it's cool to hate LeBron James, right? But when they leave, he be talking again. Like it's gonna be, he just hit like 20 points in the last 3 or 4 games, and at 41 years old, he's gonna become, this is gonna wash over, and Memphis is still gonna be Memphis, and the league is still gonna be the league, and if there was a moment of radicalization or something that could have come from this, it's less likely to happen.
I think too. I was thinking this. So if it is structures and institutions that end us up in a place like this, then it requires structures and flexible institutions to address that, to address those same social ills and woes that the dominant structures and institutions have saddled on our backs. So I think back to the conversation, back to what I was saying earlier about leadership and a leadership journey. I think one of the things that can be intimidating is has been intimidating for me, and a thing that I had a very difficult time articulating when I first started the lighthouse. Like, it was in my head, but I couldn't quite articulate what I was trying to do. So essentially, the intention is to build an ecosystem that is counter to the structures and institutions that have found us in this place in the first place. Um, so it's not fragmented fragmented programming as it may look to some people, right? Um, if you are a systems thinker, which it took me a long time to realize that I was, if you are a systems thinker, then it doesn't look like fragmented programs. It looks like a whole lot of different entry points to get us in the same car headed in the same direction. So
Yeah,
you might get in the front passenger door. You might hop in the trunk because it was still open when the car started moving. You might be the driver, like whatever it is. And I think we expect, in this instance, we'll talk specifically about celebrities. I think we expect celebrities and moneyed people, people who have some degree of wealth. You know, wealth is big gap, but we expect them to have systemic analysis and to apply systemic thinking when, because of their degree of influence and money, they really have no reason to do that.
that 100%, 100, and not only don't have a reason to do it, in some cases it would be to their detriment to do it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's where, again, not recognizing that they're not like us. That song always made me laugh because who's the they and who's the us,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
somebody saying they not like us and you saying that they could be talking about you and you singing the song right along with them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that, and I think it's unfortunate. Well, I know it's unfortunate that we are because race consciousness is big in our communities, we still are holding on to an expectation that they will, if nothing else, give us money. Right? You don't have to, because you always hear the conversations about, well, they be doing a lot of stuff and don't want anybody to know. Right? These conversations about these, benevolent black billionaires and millionaires who are, as Jay-Z said, not being the poor and helping them, right? Um, but I think that prevents us from being clear about the we all we got part about it, right? I think there's always some idea that if we could just be part of the system, it would be better for us than if we figured out, like you said, how to create our own ecosystems. I think there's still a part of us that one feels that, not me at all, right? But believes that it's safer, believes that it's more, when I
It's
say safer, like
easier.
more stable, right? That it's more legitimate, that it's more
And you have to
reputable,
sacrifice less.
way less. So for me, when I'm hearing the conversations, I always would ask people like, who did you think LeBron James was? What did you expect him to say? Um,
Mm.
and then people are like, I don't know. I just didn't expect to hear. And again, the optics, right? I didn't expect him to say that. But in sociology, we talk about backstage, front stage, right? He was in the backstage. Like you say, that's something you say to your mom, to your friends. I don't think he knew that that was going to get out like that, right? He was on the golf course with his buddies, you know? And then yeah, because I think he's more media prepped than to say something like that publicly. But then he doubled down on the implications. Um, but we have to be honest. Memphis does not cater to millionaires, right? And then he throws Milwaukee in there. He threw some other towns under the bus, and that's legitimate. It's hard to get black millionaires who have lived their lives to be as far away from black working class people as possible, right? Because that's the narrative. That's the narrative in sports. That's the narrative in music. The narrative is get enough money to what? Get out of the hood. The conversation about, if I think Tupac said it in an interview, and he was saying, as a black person with so much money, there's nowhere he can live where there's other black people like him. He's like, either I'm living in the hood with black people who don't have money, or I'm living by white folks, right? So he's like, there's no option. Um, and that's what we didn't have to worry about in segregation, right? The idea that because we were limited in where we could be, but I think we
Everybody was
romanticized
together.
that into thinking that wealthy black folks preferred it that way because they had to
Mm-hmm.
have it that way,
Mm-hmm.
right? But when you look at cities like Memphis, Black Flight, when segregation ended, they was like, oh, cool. Now I don't have to live in these neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Now I'm gone. So I think overall, just the class analysis, that I think this allows us to have a greater one, class analysis about what it looks like in the black community, to what we mean in terms of black spaces and what investment we are willing to put in black spaces, right? To ensure that if there's issues in whatever city, what can actually be done for the people that live in that city. A lot of questions come up, a lot of things that, people, the unfortunate part is the people doing the work in Memphis have not been invited to join the conversation, right? So people who are doing
Why would we
development and
invite
housing.
them?
Right, that ain't gonna get no likes,
Yeah, that's silly.
right? But they missed the moment there. Let's see if we got any comments. We got any comments? I'm trying to see the thing.
It's a lot of comments, I think.
Where we at? I'm on the iPad. iPad is wild.
Wait, I
I
can
could be
read. Don't mess up, friend. Great combo. I could be wrong about Memphis, but those high foreclosure rates screams benign neglect, and we know what happened shortly after that.
100%. It's fundamentally intentional. The thing that is super sad is that there's there's not even a plan to do anything with it. It's just an effort, an intentional effort to erase the history of some of the Memphis is one of the most important cities to the black experience in the United States. I think because after 1968, we killed the city because it killed Dr. King. We don't
Mm-hmm.
even acknowledge the history, 1865 race riot. I mean, 1866 race riot, which creates Beale Street, black millionaires, black banks, black house, right? This community that built itself, that rebuilt itself after a race riot, right? It's not a history we tell. And because of the way the neglect, like you say, benign neglect and divestment, is specifically in these historic black communities, when you go to them, you literally can't see the remnants of that history, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you erase the history from a city, now you have kids growing up in that city. They don't have anything anchoring them to why they should be proud to be in the city, what traditions exist to carry it on. Most people I meet from Memphis don't live in Memphis,
Mm-hmm.
right? I was just doing a tour a couple weeks ago, and the guy who was driving around me and my students, he was like, I've lived here for 20 years and I didn't know any of the stuff that you were talking about, right? And he was like, Memphis is a pretty cool place.
Mm-hmm.
But when you drive through it, all the history is gone with all the buildings. There's maybe some plaques and stuff, but the fact that they've allowed the history to be torn down, replaced, and erased, it's not. It's definitely intentional, right? The conversations about and I think that using black players as the voice of the move from Memphis to Nashville is also intentional, right? I think it's a way for those who are investing to say, well, if the black players don't even like it there, then we gotta move it, right? And I don't know if the black players have their hands in a pot that's gonna benefit from the relocation, or if they're just not conscious enough to know, like, there's something behind this that I'm being used for.
Yeah. I I had a thought, but I forgot. Is it true that our options really are in 2026 just the hood or Whiteyville? It's not like there are no heavily black middle class neighborhoods. There are black middle class neighborhoods. One of the things that stood, I had never heard that quote
I'm not
before.
talking about middle class, and I want to say that. Go ahead, and then I'll explain.
Well, I was gonna say though, I had never heard that before, so that question popped in my head. immediately also. But here's the thing. Um most I will have to go back and find a source for this. So I'm just going to say it is my opinion and anecdotally true that most black middle class neighborhoods were once white affluent neighborhoods. And so there is the chasing thing that happened. So I think, yeah, is there a difference between the hood and a middle class neighborhood? Sure. But when we're talking about white flight, the combination of white flight, aspirational whiteness, and I got a few dollars in my pocket. So I have more options to choose what kind of house I want to have. I can consider the architecture. I can consider the neighborhood, all of these things that I can consider because I have, $2 extra in my bank account. Then I think what happens is you just have what ends up happening is black folks chasing white folks. And in that black folks chasing white folks, and that's a simple way to say it, but in that black folks chasing white folks thing that happens when black people move in and white people move out, well, then the property value drops in your neighborhood, and so then that gives more people access to your neighborhood. So like, no, it might not become the hood, but it certainly isn't what it was created to be. And so in that way, there is that still that dichotomy. Like, it's either the hood, and it could be, hood adjacent, a little dressed up hood, or it's a white neighborhood.
Yeah, and I was, and, and I don't mean middle class, right? Because when I
Mhm.
say like Tupac, I'm talking because Chris Rock had this bit when he talked about how like he's one of the highest paid black comedians in the world, and his neighbor is a dentist, right? His white neighbor is a dentist,
Mhm.
right? So one, when we talk about wealth, or we talk about neighborhood makeup, regular white people with money have neighborhoods where they live in, right? Generally, if you are like you said, this idea of chasing whiteness, the idea of being the token in the white community, right?
Mhm.
Being one of the few black families to live here. Because again, it would take something collective for there, black people, if black people got the money they say they have, they could create a subdivision. But a lot of money black people, the last thing they want to do is live around a whole bunch of other black people, right? So when you said chasing money, I think the options could exist, but I don't think, and people will mention outliers, right? But I mean, to the extent that white people with money and no celebrity can have options in every metro area, every suburb, to live in communities with people that look like them, that think like them, that vote like them, that worship like them, is a luxury that we can't even imagine. Because whatever communities we gonna name, we gonna name them. We gonna name them on our fingers, and that's gonna be the list, right? It's not like it's the norm, right? It's an outlier thing that we have. I think also there's this perception of, and I don't know what folks mean when they say the hood, but there are nice neighborhoods of working class folks,
Absolutely.
right? So it doesn't mean that just because people don't have a lot of money that their neighborhood is um dilapidated necessarily, right? There's a lot of working class neighborhoods where people keep their lawns up and their kids go to school together. Um, but at some point we'll have to talk about black flight a little bit more, right? How folks was like,
Mhm.
I want to be around people that don't look like me for whatever reasons, right?
Mhm.
But I don't think that black people with money have those options. To No. First of all, it ain't that many of us, right? And I say us like I'm one of them, but I'm saying amongst black people,
Hey,
it's not even
get
enough. It's
money.
not even it's not even enough that I'm talking about. Um But I say that to say I think we do need to be more intentional about black neighborhoods and black communities. You
I
know,
think sometimes we think that because we can name the people with a whole lot of money that that means it's accessible, and we don't consider the fact that because we can name them that that means they are the exceptions.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, and I think that the conversation to be had about Memphis is if you get a group of investors, that enclave that we're talking about, you could build it in Memphis. Would the folks who could afford to live there want to live there? The idea is there's enough space, and like you said, there's no state income tax. The the ROI if you build here is great because of how much they've tanked the property values. It could be done.
Yeah,
But
but it's a
again,
lot of black people there.
yeah, but we're talking about the black people, right? Because the question was like, is it just hood or whiteyville? It's some gated communities here. You know, you could build a black community here,
Yeah.
but you got to live around other black people. White people don't have no problem living around black people.
That's not true. But I do think, well, I we'll talk about this more later. We got a comment, and one other comment. I think unfortunately a lot of black folks are devoted to capitalism because of the few it worked for, and also decades of counterinsurgency that tells us it'll magically save us from white supremacy.
Listen,
I see
because they
that we don't
pushing that
see a mere
hard.
working class black people mentality in my parents. It's disgusting and infuriating.
It is, yeah. But again, like you said, we get that push to us. We get that push to us that if we want anything good for ourselves as black people, the first thing we got to do is get away from other black people.
Yeah.
The first thing we got to do is abandon the things that are identifiable about us as black, right?
Yeah.
So on the flip side, somebody gonna look at LeBron James on that golf course and be like, "That's where I'm trying to get." You see
Mhm.
him? It was no
Mhm.
other niggas out there, like because that's still the goal. But I think there's a detachment and understanding that what comes along with that. I think people who think they believe that black capitalism will save us from white supremacy don't understand either capitalism or blackness or whiteness or supremacy
Not altogether.
or individually those things.
Uh, I know we were late, but we're going over. But I just want to say one thing. Based on this last comment, it's disgusting and infuriating. You want me to tell you what I think is disgusting and infuriating? That Trick Daddy was at the AKA regional conference in Orlando. That's what I
I
think is
mean,
disgusting and
it's
infuriating.
Florida. If it is Florida, why you don't? Trick Daddy is a national treasure in the state of Florida.
Sure.
So what's the issue?
So let's have a picnic, a cookout that y'all love to have and invite white people to, and invite Trick Daddy to perform at the cookout.
I think it was kind of odd watching him perform in the conference room of a like residency inn. I think that was a little awkward for me to see.
And what
But
did you think you were gonna get?
they booked Trick Daddy. Yeah.
Yeah, you got what you booked.
Here's the thing. I don't think now, and I could be wrong because I'm not in an organization and I don't know too much except from the people that are in them that talk to me. Um, I don't think it would have been such a big issue if it hadn't have gotten so much traction on the internet. I don't think that if people hadn't been like, "What's going on?" internetually, that
Mhm.
it would have caused as much of a stir.
I mean, I could agree with that. I think that is the case with a whole lot of things. If not so many other people would have found out that this is a thing that happened, then we wouldn't be addressing this at all. But what I'm saying is, as a person, and this is not a thing that people hear me talk about a lot out loud, like publicly, but as a person who crossed in the fall of 2000, Lambda Iota chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. The grad chapter that we were affiliated with. Okay? Trick Daddy wouldn't have even been a discussion to be had about whether or not he was going to come to something or not, because we were told and taught and talked about like what we could and couldn't stroll to. And as I'm repeating that, respectability politics. Well, respectability politics, me cuz. Like some things just don't. No.
I think it's generational. I think what, and again, this is me on the outside looking in, but I think we're looking at a generation of not just folks who are AKAs, but who are AKAs in positions of leadership in the organization that feel a different way. Because
Yeah.
it's not like they snuck him in there, right? Like he had to get paid and put on the program. So
Yeah.
all the people who are making the decisions for this chapter, for this region, were like, this is a good idea. Or the people who didn't think it was a good idea for whatever reason didn't speak up against it when there was time to speak up against it. But there's a generation of women who probably were like, I've been waiting to see Trick Daddy since whatever, whatever. And now in my 50s or in my whatever, I'm finally going to get to see him. And they were actually excited about it. I know there
Fine
were
with it.
some women there who were like, I am so glad that my sorority is giving me the opportunity to see Trick Daddy.
I'm fine with Trick Daddy. I mean, I don't listen to Trick Daddy except for what's that song? Dun 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 dun. Let me get you on the yard line and shit. Anyway, that with Trina.
Uh-huh.
But
Okay. Yeah,
what's
that one.
up? Yeah, that.
Shut up. Yeah,
But
that
I wouldn't even
one.
have
Mhm.
felt comfortable to go listen to that at regional conference. Yes, he did actually have on a hat.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I think what you're seeing is a generational a generational shift in what it means to be an AKA, right? Because there are people who crossed and are in the organization who were like, this aligns with our values. This aligns
Yeah,
with what we're a part of,
baby.
right?
In
Maybe
my day.
15, 20, 30 years ago, it wasn't the same, but now you got folks who are like,
Wait, why you
this
want to add
fits.
so many numbers?
Because I'm gonna tell you why. Because the
Because
video
I
I
think
saw
you
was a
you
young
older than
man.
me.
No, no, not you. This is my point. It was a young man, and he was like, "I'm here with my grandma, and they're leaving." So it was showing a whole bunch of like old church lady AKAs, pearl clutching AKAs, and they were appalled, and they were leaving the space. So
Absolutely.
right. So I'm saying, but
I would
but
have been
but
one of them.
but why would you go? Why would you be there? If you 60 years old and you look at the program and it's like entertainment and it's like bid whist, hypnotist, trick daddy. What in your 60-year-old mind would be like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go to the trick daddy option.
Maybe they thought it was a magic show.
And that's why, yes, because tricks and daddy, I think you are correct. They
They thought
might
it was
have
a
thought,
magic show.
like, I thought that I could, and that's why they left, right? I get that. But I think that, it's generational. I really think it's some AKs that were like, oh, we finna be lit. Like it it gotta be some AKAs that were like, we are going to be the group that brings Trick Daddy to the AKAs. Like that's
Probably.
gonna be
Yeah.
our legacy.
Yeah.
Because again, this generation and the ideas of we don't do respectability and don't put us in a box. We can be AKAs and still be ratchet. We all
Absolutely.
right. So I think that is the logic that was like, who we should get? Trick Daddy. And then people in the room were like, I can see it. And then that's what happened.
Whew, I'm gonna call Miss Linda Gator when I get off the phone and talk to her about this. That was our grad advisor.
Yeah, because my dad had a friend of his who was like in her 70s and he texted me like, what is a Trick Daddy?
What is a trick daddy?
Cause my dad's like 70. And I told him something. He's like, oh, I remember those songs. He was like, oh yeah, I see how I can see why she was upset about him being there.
Yeah,
But
just don't track. This Blackberry 623 is
And
getting
right, that's
to.
what they are trying to rebrand themselves. They are sick of that.
But
Say
listen,
this how would
listen.
understand.
Not the
See,
AKAs, the Deltas, I would understand. AKA is the antithesis of ratchet. Zetas, I will understand. I'm not getting into all that. You said
I'm
it, I
just saying.
didn't.
I think
But
that the
I
young
am
folks of
saying
they're trying to really. Oh goodness. Oh. The same AKAs who are clutching their pearls, their 20 pearls over Amanda Seals pretending to be an A. The same the same one. Also, some people just take it very seriously,
they
right?
do. And I'm
They
not one
do.
of those people. But
Anything
this
that
is
doesn't
weird.
align with the way they see being the thing is out of pocket. But I want to find some people that was like, I went and it was fun. Where the come to the front, come to the
They
front.
probably
Those people.
ashamed to say it.
You can't be. If you like Trick Daddy, you are not a person who is shamed.
We could tame multitudes, but
We do.
but I'm so old I can't even ski wee high pitch no more. Like it don't even it just come out at a nice baritone. So anyway,
Jeez. I guess that's I don't know the progression,
the
but
progression. And we're gonna progress our way out of
give us our
this.
thank yous. Who are we thanking?
We're
African
thanking
World Order, the Lighthouse. Always thanks to
ourselves.
our. I'm gonna thank
First,
myself.
giving honor to God, who is the head of our lives.
Our producer Josephus. Um, subscribe, like. Lighthouse is always doing big things.
Yeah,
That's
I
really
think that's
it.
it. I think
Yeah.
that's it. Oh, I did a Memphis playlist. I will drop the link in the what's it in the comments on African World Order and on the Lighthouse YouTube. And I have a one that's accessible for people who don't have Apple Music now. I figured out how to do that.
Awesome. Yeah, y'all have a great weekend. Thanks for rocking with us. And yeah, come to
Yeah,
Memphis.
come to Jackson. Okay, bye.
I can't go out without changing my clothes, my shoes, my body posture. I can't do what I want to do with my own body, and who in the hell set things up like this? I was wrong again to be me being me where I was. Wrong to be who I am. I am very familiar with the problems of the CIA, and the problems of white America in general, and the problems of the teachers and the preachers and the FBI and the social workers and my particular mom and dad. I am very familiar with the problems because the problems turn out to be I am the history of the terrorized incarceration of myself. I am the history of battery, assault, and limitless armies against whatever I want to do with my mind and my body and my soul. I am not wrong. Wrong is not my name. And I can't tell you who the hell set things up like this, but I can tell you that from now on, my resistance, my simple and daily and nightly self-determination may very well cost you your life.